it was just the radical left, and now it's actually leaders in the Democrat Party, and they're asking us to imagine a world without police. But we don't need to imagine that because we already know what it looks like. In Alaska, where 1/3 of villages have no police officers at all, a 2019 investigation by the liberal group ProPublica found that, quote, sexual abuse runs rampant, public safety resources scarce. In 2018, East Pittsburgh dissolved its police force after an officer shot and killed a black teenager. Guess what happened next? Violent crime went up, and black communities were some of the hardest hit. And here's what it's like in Santa Monica, California, when cops aren't nearby to keep the peace. There was a woman on a bicycle, and she was driving by, got knocked off. He was trying to help her. He got beaten and stomped. We've seen other disturbing videos tonight that we'll try to get to later in the hour. But my next guest says there's something even more troubling about the calls to defund the police. Those demands mirror those of the Weather Underground in the 1960s, of course, that violent group. Joining me now is Terry Turchie, former FBI Deputy Counterterror Director, author of the book In Their Own Words. Terry, these videos are hard to watch. They're not being reported on by the other networks, which is a stunning dereliction of journalistic duty. But what's the similarity with the Weather Underground, and why is that so jarring to you for people who still aren't familiar with that group?
Sure, many people weren't even born at that time. The Weather Underground, Laura, was a terrorist group back in the 1970s, and they were responsible for well over 2,000 bombings and attacks on government institutions, businesses in the United States. And certainly they had a major goal, and that goal was to foment a communist revolution. They called themselves communist-minded men and women. And in 1974, they authored a document called Prairie Fire. And they outlined their strategy, and they outlined the way they could get to that strategy and actually bring down the U.S. government. We saw during that time frame massive protests, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, kind of marshaled by the aftermath of the Vietnam War, then Watergate, and they used those protests to get where they wanted to go. But then they got scattered as the FBI was effective in running them down, and eventually many of them left the country. Ultimately, the Weather Underground kind of went out of business, but they left Prairie Fire behind. What was their strategy? This was a 180-page document. Their strategy was called resistance. Not too long, maybe about 5 minutes after President Trump won the election in 2016, Democratic Party leaders came out and they said, we're going to resist. We're going to embark upon a strategy of resistance to the president. But that's only the beginning. The document, the Prairie Fire document, actually contained 6 points that the Weather Underground felt very important about. These were the planning points that would bring about this revolution. They wanted capitalism. We're going to put them on screen,
Terry, so people can see what you're talking about. Go through them briefly. Destroy capitalism, the weapon of
destroy
choice
capitalism.
Systemic racism, political racism, police racism, identify the victim classes, organize the victim classes. That's why you have LGBT folks and illegal immigrants are now joining the cause. Engage in international solidarity with the global movement, attack and dethrone God.
So let's take two of those points tonight. Let's take international solidarity and, of course, police racism. This is over 50 years ago. Racism, systematic racism, police brutality, systemic police brutality, these were the things they were saying then. They knew that these were nothing more than the kerosene you throw on the fire, but they knew they worked. The Black Panther Party, meanwhile, over in Oakland, was saying, we're going to demand that the police in our communities leave, that we'll police our own communities. All of this was happening at the same time. The Black Panther Party was ambushing police officers in America back then. So police racism then and police racism now is a phony issue. It has always been a phony issue. It is the issue that communist societies use to literally tear apart America and to be divisive. Those categories of people you have on that screen, those are the kind of victimhoods that they look for to kind of bring into focus large groups of people and get them on the team here. And so when you see these demonstrations, they're kind of a part of a lot of organized parties out there that are being brought in together. All of this has been adopted into the 2016 Democratic Party platform in almost the same language as you have on the screen. And, and now we're seeing their politicians.
Yeah, so Terry, now from these radical groups that became violent, bombings and so forth, morphing into all these groups today in resulting in a new Democrat Party that's embracing all of these radical ideas and making people literally bow down to them, or else you're going to lose your job, or all the other things they're threatening. And all these corporate CEOs, all these folks are just, everyone's running scared. Terry, we're going to continue. We'll talk to you next week further on this, because there's going to be more developments. We see them already happening. Thank you so much.